I just remembered that I forgot to add a task to my to-do list. Can I add another element to the array after I've created it? Yes, in this case we can. Now I'll explain why I said this case in a bit. To add an element to an array, there are a couple different ways that we can go about doing this. The simplest is by using the append method. Now I know you don't know what methods or functions are just yet, and that's totally fine. Let's write out another line of code. So we'll start by writing the name of the array, so to do, followed by a period or a full stop, and then the word append. Now you can see that as you're typing, Xcode will autocomplete for you. So just hit enter to select the first option. Now this append method takes a value that we need to provide, and it's this value that we're going to add to our array. And we're going to include this value inside a set of parentheses as you see here. Since our array is an array of strings, we're going to add a new string. We'll say pick up dry cleaning. And notice that in here you create a string literal the same way you do in the array. If you look at the results area, I'm going to drag it out. You'll notice now that our array contains the string we just added at the very end. This is important because this is how an array works. Adding a value to an array, called appending an item, always adds the item to the end of the array. Going back to the box analogy, we just added another box to the end of our connected boxes. And now this new box, instead of getting a name, it has the next number in the order. What if we wanted to add more than one item to the array? We can do that as well by adding one array to the other or concatenating two arrays. We can do this with the addition operator in the same way that we concatenated two strings. So let's add a comment here. I'll say add new item to end of array using append method. So this is the first way. The second way is by concatenating two arrays. Now, I want to add another value to the end of the to-do array. However, we can only concatenate two different arrays. For example, if I do 1, 2, 3, so we have here an array of integers containing the values 1, 2, and 3, and then I'll concatenate another array and I'll say 4. And now you'll see in the results area that we have one single array that contains 1, 2, 3, and 4. So here we're concatenating two arrays. Now I want to take to do and add something to the end. So much like I did here, I can take the to-do array, the addition operator, and then an array containing a single string. So I'll say order book online. Now you'll notice if I drag this out here, order book online has been added to the end of the array. There's a minor thing though. If I just write out to do here so that it prints out the array contents in the results area, you'll notice that our order book online isn't actually here. And that's because this operation that we're carrying out over here, we're not assigning it back to do, so we're not storing it. So what I can do is over here, I'll say to do equal to do plus order book online. So it adds the contents of this array to do and then assigns the new value back to do. If you remember this operation, taking a value, adding something to it, and then assigning it to the same variable, there's a common operator for handling this. So we can write to do plus equal order book online. And now I'll comment out this line, and you'll see that the to-do array is the same. Okay, so let's look at another thing here. Let's add a comment. Concatenate array containing string literal to do. And then I'll say here that we're performing the same operation using the unary addition operator. Okay, so over here, we're concatenating an array containing a string to do. But when you look at the results, you'll notice that the result just contains that string inside the original array. So why can't we concatenate, let's say, to do plus some string? Now, the reason we can't do that, again, has to do with type safety. You can only use the addition operator when the types on either side are the same. You can concatenate two strings to each other. You can concatenate or you can add two integers to floats. You cannot add a string to an integer. We've been through that before. And similarly, you cannot add or concatenate a string to an array. Doesn't make sense. So instead, we create an array containing a string, and we say that we want to add those two together. But remember, the types have to be the same. Okay, when we started this a couple minutes ago, I asked if we could add items to an array, and I said yes, in this case we can. Well, what did I mean by this case? When we learned about variables and constants, we learned about immutability and mutability of data. As a refresher, an immutable type cannot change, and we create immutable types using the keyword let to create a constant. And in this case, to do is created using var, which creates a mutable array. So let's create another array down here. We'll add a comment. I'll say immutable arrays. I'll say let second task list equal mow the lawn. Now, if you try to use any of the methods we just used to add a new item to the array, it will raise an error. So for example, we can say second task list.append, and I'll say pay bills. And you'll notice we have an error. Okay, let's comment this out. And I'll say error. Okay, what about if we concatenated this list? So we'll say second task list plus equal some value. And again, we have an error. So again, we'll comment this out. We'll say error. Now, all of this is happening because this array is immutable. It's assigned to a constant, and so it cannot be changed. So keep that in mind. You can only add items to an array if the array has been assigned to a variable, if the array is mutable. Now we know how to add things to an array. What about reading things? How do we get things out? Let's look at that in the next video.